Yeah. What's going down today, Mark?
Today we got 4-time CrossFit Games champ Rich Froning, who's also not only won as an individual, but also has won as a team member. And he's out there in Cooksville, Tennessee. Super excited to talk to him today. Rich is somebody that has not been known for being real dedicated to like a diet. He hasn't had a strict diet per se, and there's a lot of videos of him eating Oreos and different things. But I think more recently he's changed his tune. He's getting a little older, and so maybe he needs that. I'm not sure. He was dominating the CrossFit Games at a very young age, mid to early 20s. I'm not sure how old he is at the moment, but I know that he was very dominant kind of right off the bat. I'm excited to kind of dive in and see what drove him to want to win so many titles, so many championships. Like, did he lose somewhere along the line, or does he hate himself, or does he hate other people, or or where does it come from? Just want to be competitive, you know?
Yeah, it's so crazy when you look at the like we were just talking about it, how like the capacity of like these guys, the volume, the training, like everything. Like when you were in Ohio, you were talking about how you were watching him and Matt Fraser train, and you're just like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah. Nsima, you said you tried CrossFit for a little bit, or you wanted to?
I wanted to.
How did that go?
I had a trainer at 24 Hour Fitness that he took me through like a CrossFit type workout, and it was like so vanilla. It was so just like not comparable to what these guys are doing. And I was dead. I was like, maybe not. So I ended that dream quite early.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be really cool to talk to like a young goat, because, you know, you don't really get to, like when you usually talk to the guys that are the greatest of all time, you don't really talk to them while they're still close
They're
to
50.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So we
not
can
32 or whatever he is.
Exactly.
Yeah, like if he were to, I mean, we'll ask him, but like if that, him kind of coming out saying that he will compete again, like if that it does come out to be true and he wins, is anybody surprised?
Yeah.
I know I wouldn't be.
Yeah. And Fraser's close. He's won 3. He's going to compete again this year. So if he wins 4, what happens? Like,
yeah, and Matt Fraser is very dominant, and he's dominant with the pool being a little bit bigger as well. Like there's more people that have kind of thrown their hat into this. One thing I find interesting about this, and it reminds me of a lot of different things actually. It reminds me of MMA, reminds me of strongman. People look at big guys like me and Nsima, or look at, you know, big guys at a gym, be like, dude, you'd be great at strongman. It's like, no, not out of nowhere we wouldn't be. And you know, one person might be better than the next, but you're not going to be great at it out of nowhere. It's going to take a lot of practice. I've had people, you know, I've gone to a lot of MMA fights and things like that, and people are like, dude, you should get in the ring. It's like, that has really not, you know, the way that I'm built has actually nothing to do with the execution that those guys have in the ring. And CrossFit's like that. You know, CrossFit, if you're not CrossFitting, then you're going to have a really hard time with it.
Yeah.
If you haven't tried something before, like if you're in really good condition and you run a lot, you'll be okay when you hit a heavy bag, but you're still going to be way out of breath. You're still going to lose your legs if you're doing some like Muay Thai on a bag, and you're kicking and punching, and your intensity is real high. Even if you're used to like doing it in some other capacity, if it's not the same, and that's what makes CrossFit so different. It's like, we're going to test you out in all this weird different stuff that you may not have ever been exposed to before. They've rode bikes on bike trails. They did trail runs, and then when they were done with a 4K trail run through rigorous terrain, then they did like a deadlift ladder. And some of the girls went up to 400 pounds. Some of the guys went up to 600 pounds. I mean, it's just, you can look at it as like a power lifter and say, oh man, these guys are weak. But take it into the context of what they're doing, and you realize how strong they are. And then on top of that, most of these guys don't really weigh more than 200 pounds. So they're I mean, a 3 times body weight deadlift after you ran a 4K, and you're not just running, you're competing. So I have a lot of admiration for these guys, and so excited to talk to Rich today.
I'm going to try to connect with them now.
Yeah, we'll get him on the horn. I also am interested to see like how he's monetized stuff. You know, that's a really interesting part of the game too, because CrossFit a few years ago, I'm sure it was a lot harder, but he's won multiple championships with that gives him a paycheck. They actually pay you when you win. I think it's, a few $100,000, which is great. But it's not something you can just automatically live the rest of your life off of without working. But he's got, contracts with Rogue and with Reebok. And I think he's made a great life for himself off of that, which is awesome.
Yeah. Do you know if it's like, kind of like in the UFC, you have to have certain sponsor, or you can only have like Reebok kits or whatever? Do they have like a stronghold on the athletes the way the UFC does right now?
Reebok, I don't know the current status of all that, but Reebok used to basically, Reebok and CrossFit kind of own the CrossFit games together. Reebok didn't really have a say with anything else. And so like with our products, the Slingshot products could appear in everything. And then once the games came along and the games got bigger and bigger, then people had to, turn the knee sleeves inside out and things like that. So it's a little bit like the UFC where, they're trying to promote what they got rather than, promote people that aren't necessarily fitting the bill,
Yeah. I see a lot of guys wearing like Nike Metcons and stuff. I wonder if they really care about that or not. Like for certain competitions, you're only allowed to wear certain type of knee sleeves in powerlifting.
Yeah, I think in the CrossFit games, I think that more recently that has changed. I think they give you shoes. I think they give you all that stuff. So, you get like quite a bit of like free stuff. You get outfitted pretty good head to toe. And then you're also doing so many different things. So it's like you're swimming, you're biking, and they give you shorts for this workout and a bathing suit for that workout. And they provide you with everything. So I don't remember where they left off. I do know what you're talking about because there was a few years where there was Nike kind of appearing.
Yeah.
And I actually, at one of the CrossFit games, I ended up talking to some people that were with Nike, and they were kind of bragging. They're like, we just do what Nike always does. We just sit back and wait, let everybody else spend their money, and we'll just let CrossFit come to us eventually. And who knows? I mean, it might be the Nike CrossFit games at some point. I don't know.
Shoot, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I love the Metcons.
Yeah.
I love those shoes. They're my favorite absolute training shoe at this point.
Nike does a great job. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. They've been a Fortune 500 company for the last 20 something years. And they do a great job. And they've also, they've done a great job infiltrating CrossFit, and they do a great job with, all the different sports they get involved in. Boom.
That sounded like success.
Yeah.
Rich Froning actually bench presses more often than most CrossFitters too. It's actually pretty strong. I want to say I've seen him do multiple sets and multiple reps with 315 on like a floor press.
Like, look at his chest. Like we were just talking about how big his chest is. I'm not surprised at all that he can actually do that. And they're like, it's just so crazy, the amount that they do. I wonder what their pain threshold is. You know what I mean? Like when you look at what they do versus other sports, that's painful.
Yeah. It's brutal.
Oh, here we go.
Hey.
There we go.
What's up, Mr. Froning? Hey, what's up, handsome?
Here we go.
How's it going?
Oops.
It's going great. You know how this technology works over there, buddy? Do they have this kind of stuff in Tennessee?
No, it's kind of slow. We're slow with the times here, but
We'll get it.
I don't ever use Skype, so.
Well, look, you're doing it now, buddy. There's nothing you can't do.
Yeah.
I'm here joined today by Nsima Inyang and also my co-host over there, Andrew Zaragoza. Awesome to have you on the show, man. Super, super excited. So let's kind of dive right in. I know, some people have seen you on some videos in the past eating like Oreo cookies and eating a little bit of what you want. And has any of that stuff changed? And additionally, do you kind of eat recklessly, or did you used to eat recklessly, or is that just like kind of them just capturing you eating Oreos?
No, I mean, up until probably the last 2 or 3 years, I really didn't pay attention quite as much to my diet. Now, obviously they took snapshots of like competition weekends where, I'm calories. I was a little bit more cautious, I guess, than that. But yeah, in the last 2 or 3 years, I've been a lot more cautious. Since I turned 30, it turns out you can't just eat what you want and recover like you want doing that type of stuff. So actually, in August, I started doing intermittent fasting. I started doing the 16 and 8, and I really, really like it. So I was going to do it for a little while we were in kind of off season, and with CrossFit they changed everything up, so we haven't really had an off season. But once I got back into training, I was like, I'll see how it goes and see if I still like it. And man, I still like it and really enjoy. As long as I get enough calories the day before, I feel good to go the next day. And so I can do usually 2 or 3 training sessions before I eat again. So I'll go 1 to 9, so 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. And I really like it.
That is really fascinating because you're known even in CrossFit where these people are, a lot of you guys and girls are working out a lot. You're known for working out a ton. And I've even heard people say like they've been on vacation with you and they've been to these different events and they're like, dude, Rich is like over there doing cleans and doing floor presses. And they just said you are constantly working out. So the fasting has been working okay for you, even with the amount of workouts that you do?
Yeah. So I really love it. And kind of my problem is I would eat in the morning anyway and eat breakfast, and then I'd kind of forget to eat the way we would train all day. And if I get busy and I'm not thinking about food, I don't get hungry. Obviously, if I'm just hanging out, it gets really hard to do the fasting thing because at 12 o'clock, I'm like, okay, I'm starving now. But as long as I stay busy, I'm good to go. So I used to eat in the morning. Wouldn't eat all day or maybe take a shake or something, then eat again at night. And so I was kind of doing it, but not super strict with it. What I really like about this though, is it makes me eat in the middle of the day. So by the time I train again in the afternoon, I feel good, where I used to, by the end of the day, I was pretty much shot. The last training session was a lot less productive. We won't say garbage, but it was pretty close to garbage at that point. And so I really like doing the fasting thing now.
So do you notice like a benefit as far as your training is concerned, or do you notice like do you not have as much energy, or are you just feeling really good?
A mix of both, man. I feel good, feel clear-headed, but I also, I'm not sluggish or anything like that. Like I said, it really helps that afternoon training session. And like I said, as long as I'm getting enough calories in the morning, and I have been working with RP Strength, and so I was doing their templates last year. And so I've kind of taken the template that I was using and moved it into that 9-hour or the 8-hour period. And so I'm trying to get the same amount of calories. Like I'm not restricting my calories by any means. I'm still getting the same amount of calories. I'm just doing it within 8 hours. And so honestly, as long as I get enough calories the day before, that next day I feel good to go. My training doesn't suffer. We swam this morning. I could train again, and we're leaving for China tomorrow. So today's kind of a goofy day training wise and trying to get everything ready and good to go. We compete on Saturday, which is technically Friday here. Yeah, so it's going to be a little bit chaotic. And what I really like about the fasting thing is I get up in the morning and I don't have to worry about, getting food ready and getting out of the house. Like I can just go. The hardest part is, like pouring my kids a bowl of cereal and not stealing a bite or two, and trying to teach them about taxes, but it's hard. That's the hardest part.
How do you manage your day? You must be very busy with all these workouts that you have to do to be a high-level CrossFitter. On top of that, your business has grown. You've been able to monetize exercise, let's just say, and you have your own gym and stuff like that. So how do you kind of organize your day with the mix of family, business, and CrossFit?
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's and there's days that I do it better than others. I try to, when I look at, right now, I'm only going to be able to compete for the next probably couple years, as long as I feel like I'm still productive, and I don't compete just to have fun. I compete to win. And so as long as I feel like I can still do that, I'll still compete. But, my number one goal is my family. Every day, that's the number one goal. And then from there, training, because obviously competing is kind of what time wins in the long run. And so I know that I've got a closed window for that, or a small window for that. So that's the big thing I do. And then luckily I have a great group of people that run the gym for me and help me out with the different stuff. And I've put different people in charge of different things that we do here at the gym, and they pretty much run it like they think it should be ran. And any major decisions, we come back and forth and talk about stuff. But I've got a great group of people and a great team around me. And the cool thing about it is the kids are getting old enough to where, they come out to the barn with me. I train a lot at the house. If I do come to the gym, they can come to the gym and hang out. And, my daughter now, she's swinging around on pull-up bars and, jumping on things and swinging on rings, and my son's just mass chaos, just throwing everything out of bins and running around. So as long as they're busy and having fun, that's what I want. But I want them as close as they can be, as long as they're not in any type of real danger with us at the gym. So it's pretty cool to see just the little things that they pick up on. My daughter, she'll be 5 in July, and she was so pissed the other day that she couldn't jump times, like through the jump rope. And I was like, we gotta chill out for a second, back up. You're gonna practice. I am practicing, and she just could not figure. So pissed. And then handstand walk. She can get 2 or 3 hands handstand walking, and it's pretty cool to see. And I've never once been like, Lakeland, let's do a workout. It's just, she just watches, and she just wants to be a part of and wants to do the things that Dad does, and it's awesome. And kind of scary to see the things that they pick up on, where I've never once told her, hey, let's do this. It's just, that's what she wants to do.
I saw one year you were going out to the CrossFit Games and you were competing as an individual, and you had your whole tribe with you. You had the wife, you had the kids with you, and I think you had an infant with you, I believe. And a lot of people were like, oh, he's done. He's not going to be able to win. Yeah, he's got a kid, but now he's got another kid, and I don't see this happening. And you're still able to pull it off. How have you been able to block out the noise to become a 4-time world champion?
I think you just use some of that. When anytime anybody tells you can't, you guys know, any competitor knows that's all the motivation you really need, is to have somebody tell you that's not, either nobody's done it before or it's not possible. That's the deal. And it's every year is something. I get too old, or too many kids now. I'm having 3 kids. Granted, the kids thing, that's the hardest part. The age thing, doing all right with that right now. I actually feel better than I have probably in the last 3 or 4 years. But the kids, it's just, you don't want to take too much time away from them. And the biggest thing for me, and that's the reason I stepped away as an individual, was when I wasn't training, I was still thinking about training when I was an individual. I was obsessed with it. I woke up every morning. My goal was to be the fittest on earth. It was to win the CrossFit Games every single day. And you have to have that. You have to do that if you want to be a world champion, or you want to, excel at what you're doing. And I knew that I didn't want to sacrifice being a dad to have that. So I can still, on the team, I still compete, still train really hard. But when I'm done training, I'm done training. I'm not thinking about what I need to do next. And obviously there's some days where I'm like, oh, I need to get something else in, but it's not as big of a stress as it was when I was an individual. I was a real jerk. There's a lot of things that, a lot of family things, a lot of relationship things that kind of got put on the back burner, and some of it you obviously regret, but that's what you have to do to be in that situation, I think.
Are you competing as an individual this year, or is that just an April Fool's joke?
That was an April Fool's joke. Yeah, no, like I said, being on a team, I can still push, and I still have that drive. As an individual, after a couple of years of being individual, you just I feel like I'm still probably close to that fitness level. There's obviously days where I feel like I'm above that fitness level, and there's days where I'm below that fitness level. But to be an individual, you have to have that switch of just I'm ready to, I feel like you have to have something to prove. You feel like you have a chip on your shoulder, whatever it is. And you need that. If you have 5 guys and they're all the same physical capabilities, but one person has that mental edge, that's how you win. And as an individual, I don't really have that anymore. I'll give anything for my teams, and I'll push as hard as I can for the guys and girls next to me. But as an individual, like I said, I don't go to get second or third or for a participation medal. I go to win, and I just don't where my head's at, if that makes sense.
What if Frazier won a 4th championship?
Hey, that's the golden question, but it's just different times, like he's super fit, obviously, great athlete, and so it's just we're at different points in our careers and different points in our lives for sure.
I just picture like some tumbleweed going in front of you two guys, and you guys having an old-fashioned Western.
We'll shoot it out.
Yeah.
What have you noticed? Because you mentioned earlier that like you started taking a little bit more better care of your health as you started getting a little bit older. So what type of decline have you noticed? Because yeah, you're an athlete and you know your body, so you definitely can feel certain things. What have you felt? Because it's not like you're not old, right? But you said you felt a decline.
There's a lot of miles, in this body for a 32-year, or I'll be 32 in July. It's funny how you like up until 30, you're like, I'm 29 in 10 months. I'm 29 in 11 months and 3 days. And now it's like, I don't turn 32 till July, but if anybody asks, I'm always like, I'm 32. Because I give up, there's no point in delaying the inevitable. Honestly, the biggest thing for me has been in 17, the week before regionals, I tore my meniscus. And man, it just, I had the cortisone shot so I could compete that next weekend. And then had the cortisone shot about 4 weeks out from the games just so I could compete at the games, thought, after cortisone shot, you're good to go. And was thinking, no, don't need any surgery. Well, then after the games, I had to go in, have it cleaned up. There was a small tear on the medial side, and then I had a chronic tear on my lateral side that I never really even knew about. But man, the recovery after that was a nightmare. Everybody's like, it's 6 weeks and you're good to go. And dude, it was, 6 months and I'm still couldn't squat below parallel with it about feeling like there was a golf ball on the backside of my knee. So, I did stem cell. I did a couple rounds of stem cell, 3 different treatments of stem cell, hyaluronic acid. I tried the 5-part series. I tried the 3-part series. I tried the 1-part series. And nothing really touched, the biggest thing is like pain. I can deal with the pain. It's the inflammation where I can't, it's limiting my range of motion. And so I actually went back to the doc. This was a full year later, went to the doc after the CrossFit Games because it swelled up again during the games. And he was like, I don't see any new tear. He said, we can go in there and just kind of flush it out. And he's an old NFL doctor where he's just like, yeah, we'll just go in and clean you up and you'll be good to go. And I was like, let me do some research and, try to figure out what my other options are. And so I took about 6 or 8 weeks where I limited just range of motion, tried to do a lot of single leg stuff and stuff like that. Well, then I found this DO in town and he does just a ton of different like manipulation, and it's strain counter strain therapy is what it's called. It's similar to ART, but it's along the joint, and then some acupuncture. And man, it was back in December of this year, beginning of January, right before we went to Wadapalooza. And he basically, I can squat, I can do most things. Obviously, I've got to be pretty smart. Like there's days where if it's a little bit swollen, or if I can only run about once a week, twice a week really blows it up. Sit on or I'll do like bike erg workouts where I'm standing, alternating between standing and sitting. With the standing, at least I'm getting some, pounding on, body weight, holding my weight on my feet. But then seated, I can actually get the turnover rate that I would actually do when I'm running. So a little bit of crossover there. And I'm back to where I can squat, nothing probably close to what you guys squat. But I did 345 for 5 in a front squat the other day. And so, I'm getting back to where I'm close to the numbers that I was doing. I just have to be smart. And so very pleased. Like I said, the best I felt in a couple of years.
I saw you one year, you were running from one event to another, and I swear you were like running in slow motion and your supple breasts were bouncing up and down, and every woman in the crowd was just drooling and watching you run by. How have you been able to kind of keep your cool, and how have you been able, you're considered the greatest of all time and you're so young. How have you been able to keep level-headed? Has your faith in God or anything like that been something that's helped, or maybe a relationship with your parents or something like that?
Yeah, I think, obviously my faith is a huge part of what I do. And my tattoo, the Galatians 6:14, and that's basically all about being humble. It's man never boasts anything except for the cross of the Lord Jesus Christ has been crucified to me and died to the world. And so obviously that's a huge, hey, it's not about me, it's about, God, and those are the talents that I've been given. I don't necessarily, think that, hey, God's going to help me win this event, but it's more of like, hey, what can I do for you? The talents that you've given me and the health that I have and all the blessings that I have, that's my gift back. But also, having my parents around that have always been, hey, we're not really going to do much trash talking. You're going to keep your head down. You're going to work and you're going to outwork the person next to you. My wife definitely keeps me humble because she could care less anything about CrossFit. The first time I snatched over 300, we did this like little charity kind of competition, and we get back and everybody's pumping me up and talking about, Rich snatched 300, blah blah blah. And Hillary's like, I don't see the point. Why would you need to do that? And so that's a constant reminder of, hey, she could care less about anything, which is good. I don't want somebody that loves me only because of my fitness level. And I think honestly, CrossFit too, as a program or that's my sport, keeps you humble because you may win an event, but you're going to get your ass kicked in another event. So you may be the fittest, but you still get beat a lot throughout the weekend. And so I think for me, that keeps me humble, knowing, hey, I might be pretty good at something, but I'm probably going to get beat, if it's running or something like that. So that's one way it keeps me humble for sure.
So in regards to your wife not really caring about your awesome accomplishments and whatnot, when you were in the thick of everything, what was the dynamic like when you're spending so much time competing, so much time getting better, and yet you have a wife at home that's maybe not super pumped about everything you're actually able to do? So what was that like when you were kind of in the middle of all that?
Yeah, there was some headbutting going on. She just didn't realize, if why we couldn't take vacation, beginning of June when everybody else does when we compete at the end of July. And it's kind of funny, and it took a couple of years for her to kind of realize, hey, this is who you married, and that's, I'm not going to change you and she's not going to change me. And like I said, in the beginning, we had some, because we actually started dating before I ever started doing CrossFit. And she actually, we kind of grew into it together. And that was kind of the beauty of it was, everything kind of was a progressive, ramp up to where we are now. It wasn't an overnight, just kind of everything changed. So we were able to grow into it. She's been nothing but supportive and throughout everything. But yeah, we definitely, and still do, there's some times where I'm like, hey, I need to go downstairs for 30 minutes. Let me go get something in. And she's finally realized that it's better just to let me move and not be an asshole than if I'm, so just stressed out and wanting to do something that it's just bad for everybody.
What's something else that's helped in that area? Because the women in CrossFit are beautiful and they got these tiny little shorts on. It does, including your wife in like the gym atmosphere and maybe traveling with her. Has anything like that has helped in addition?
Yeah, for sure. She's really good friends with all the girls that train and compete with us. So some of those girls are her best friends. She's obviously we're at the house 99% of the time training. And then, it's you got to be smart. Like it is hard. Like there's so much, stuff out there that could pull you another way. And the big thing is like making sure you're never alone with another person. Like, obviously that goes without saying, but just be smart. Like, don't be an idiot. And she's just super supportive, like I said, and she does travel with me. And it's funny though, she like cherry picks where she wants to go. She's going to go to China with us tomorrow, but she didn't go to Amarillo, Texas with me 2 weeks ago. So it is what it is.
So she doesn't necessarily admire your CrossFit capabilities, but she doesn't mind the money that rolled in.
Doesn't mind. I'm going to tell the story. She's probably going to kill me, but she probably never listens to this because she never listens to our podcast either. So she loves girls' clothes, and with my daughter, she was obsessed. Like, our first daughter was obsessed with clothes and like the most expensive and all these frills and all this junk. And so one night I'm helping her fold some clothes and I take some stuff up to her closet and I open the door and I'm like, holy like how much, I'm just thinking in my head, dollar signs. And I walk back downstairs and I'm like, all right, I'm not trying to be a dick or anything. How much money do you think you've spent on Lakeland's clothes? And she goes, it's a hobby. And I was like, it's an expensive ass hobby. And she looks at me dead serious and she goes, well, CrossFit's an expensive hobby. And I was like, what you just said? I was like, that's what paid for all this. She's like, well, you know what I mean. Like, if you weren't so good at it, it would be an expense. I was like, your argument doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So yeah, that's basically mine and Hillary's relationship in a nutshell.
You know what? I'm curious. What is it that built you to like get into CrossFit? Because you said you started like a little bit after you guys were together. But CrossFit is painful. You know, I did a vanilla CrossFit type workout and I was dead. It was nothing compared to what you do. But what prepared you to be able to handle those types of workouts and deal with that pain day after day?
Yeah, I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day. I think it's just kind of a mix of, like a perfect mix of everything. You know, my parents, growing up, my mom was, her parents were farmers. My dad, you know, didn't live on a farm, but it was always doing something, always working. My parents are in any room are the two of the hardest workers in the room. They weren't, you know, we had a lot of chores to do, but they weren't making us do stuff while they were sitting around. Like, they were either doing something else or we were all doing the work together. So having them, playing sports growing up, you know, high school baseball, a little bit of college baseball. My high school baseball coach was one of my biggest mentors, especially in hard work. And that was just the thing. We ran more than the track team, I felt like, which was completely worthless. We'd go to the weight room. We'd do these like ridiculous circuits that had, and you know, talking to him now, he's like, yeah, dude, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just trying to, you guys hurt. And so just the mental side of that, the physical, you know, growing up playing football, being outside. I was a firefighter for 4 years. That's actually how I found CrossFit. I was getting my degree in exercise science. One of my professors was like, hey, you should check out CrossFit. You know, a lot of military, police, fire guys do CrossFit. And, you know, when I was at the fire station, if we were just sitting around by about 5 o'clock, you had your free time. You know, it was 24 on, 48 off. But after 5 o'clock, you know, traditional work day, you could, you know, go work out. You could watch TV, hang out. You could actually recline the recliners. We couldn't recline before 5 o'clock. So most of the guys would just hang out. I'd go back to the gym because I had nothing to do and would just go work out for a couple hours. And they'd give me so much crap because I was always back there, but I couldn't sit still that long. And so I think it was just a mix of all of those things. And found CrossFit, and I actually did my first competition, and we were on our way to spring break, and it was like, you know, there's a lot of fit guys. I don't think I'm going to be in the top 20. You know, I had to be in the top 15 to transfer. So I was thinking, well, you know, if I'm not top 20, we'll go ahead and get an early jump on spring break. We'll end up winning my sectional and become the rest there. So yeah, I think, like I said, it's just a mix of everything. Not one thing that I can really pinpoint that is the answer, but all of that.
How many people are in Cooksville, Tennessee?
Cookville, Tennessee is technically, I guess, 40,000 people live in the city limits. There's about 4 or 5 small towns that are around Cookville, and everybody kind of works in Cookville. So they say, I think, during the day, there's probably 80 to 100,000 people in Cookville. So it's not, there's more than one stoplight. You know, we've got Chipotle now, we got Chick-fil-A, you know, all the good things, everything you need.
How was the fittest man on earth found in Cooksville, Tennessee? Can you explain to people a little bit on how CrossFit maybe used to work?
Okay. Yeah. So honestly, I was born in Michigan. When I was 4 years old, we moved to Tennessee. And so we've lived here since I was 4 years old. So going on 28 years. And yeah, I mean, it used to be, we had, you know, we started training I got out of college. We opened a gym, couldn't afford to call ourselves CrossFit. I won regionals. Dave was like, hey, we'll waive that fee for you if you call yourself CrossFit. So we opened CrossFit Mayhem. And then, you know, you win the games a couple times and everybody wants to come to Cookville. So now, you know, we have Fraser lives here part of the year. Tia Toomey lives here. Who else? Chris Hinshaw, who's an endurance coach specialist, lives here. Rory McKernan, who's one of the hosts of the games, he's moving to Cookville as well. Then we've got a couple ex-individual athletes that are on our team as well. So, I mean, Cookville's kind of becoming the one of the hubs of CrossFit. I guess you still have the out west stuff, but we're making a push now.
But how was it that you were found? Can you explain a little bit how CrossFit works, or at least worked at that time?
So it used to be you basically just signed up for a sectional, and you competed at a sectional, and the top 15 from each sectional went to regionals. The top 3 from each region went to the game, or top 5 from each region went to the games. And so that was what happened to me for the first year in 2010. Well, then I got second that next year, and they kind of completely changed everything up. And they used to have, well, they still have the Open. And from the Open, you took the top, well, you go way back, there were 16 regions, top 40 from each region in the Open went to regionals, top 3 from each region went to the games. Well, then they changed it again, and you went down to 8 regionals, and the top 20 from each sub-regional, or whatever you want to call it, went to the regionals. Top 5 went to the games. Well, then now your guess is as good as mine as how it works. But for the individuals, if you are the top 20 in the Open, or if you are a national champion, or if you win one of these now sanctionals, you now go to the CrossFit Games. For the teams, for us, the 4-person teams, you now have to just win a sectional. So the Open doesn't matter. You just have to go to one of these sectionals, which we're going to tomorrow in Shanghai. If you win one of those, you go to the CrossFit Games.
So the CrossFit Open was really what blew CrossFit wide open, so to speak, because it was internet competition. And like when I think about competitions, and I think about, maybe some of the biggest competitions in the world, the only thing I can think of that might surpass it would be like American Idol. But never in the history of fitness has there ever been anything remotely close to this. And in CrossFit, I find it amazing that you can compare yourself to somebody in your age category. You can compare yourself to somebody in your area, your state, in the country, in the world, right? It's unbelievable the way that has been set up. Have you found that to be like a real big motivating factor for a lot of the people that you've worked with in your gym, this kind of like ranking system of over 250,000 people?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a motivator. You have a lot of people that, it's more accessible because they can just do it here at the gym. And so for us, what we will do is on Friday nights, we'll have what we call Friday Night Lights. And so it gives people, what's really cool is in NFL or pro baseball, you can't go actually get on the field with Tom Brady or, any of those type of people, or play baseball and go against Justin Verlander or somebody like that. But in CrossFit, you can go against Matt Fraser, you can go against Tia Toomey, because they're doing the exact same workouts. Granted, you have to have the capacity to do those workouts, but you can still do a workout, the same workout, or a very similar workout, and compare exactly where you're at against them, which makes it kind of cool for people, I think. And this is a different dimension to any other sport, I feel like.
Do you think that there's anything right now that could get you back to doing an individual? Because I know you said how much of a strain it has on like your family, how much you have to focus on it. But is there anything that could drive you in that direction? Or do you at this moment feel that there's no way you're going to have to make that sacrifice to do that again?
I just, like I said, I've kind of, obviously it does creep into your mind. Some days you're like, man, I've still got it. And then other days you're like, man, I'm glad I'm not doing this anymore. It would take a miracle, honestly, for it to happen. It's just not there right now. And I can't say that won't change over time. And who knows if, Matt's going to win 4, that obviously is going to happen. He might probably win 5. And I try to say that wouldn't creep into my head whatsoever, but who knows, we're all competitive and most of us that do CrossFit are competitive, and who knows if that something creeps into my head, but it's comparing apples to oranges and all that stuff. So it's just different.
You get a chance to go head to head with him when he's at your gym sometimes?
We did in the beginning, and we kind of realized quick that it's not good for either one of our, he'd beat me, I'd beat him. And it was just like, somebody's going to die. And we don't train a ton together. he travels, our travel schedules are a little bit different, and just, there's a lot going on. And we just realized in the beginning, hey, we can do some stuff similar together, but we don't need to go head to head. It's just not healthy for either one of us, and it'd really not be healthy for a friendship.
How about the teams? Since it's so new, like your team has won the most team competition so far, right?
Yeah, well, tied technically, but yeah.
Okay. Do you have any long-term goals as far as that type of competition is concerned, since it's less of a strain?
Yeah, no, I'm not a huge, and as weird as it sounds, people think that all people that are successful have to have goals. I'm not a huge goals guy, other than when I wake up, our goal is to win. Like that's my goal. I don't really have like short-term goals or anything like that. I have a goal that usually starts the day after the CrossFit Games every year, and that's to win the CrossFit Games the next year. And that's, I want to win as many times as we can win, and keep doing that. And, they've kind of changed it up this year where you can basically make super teams, and people don't have to train together to be on the same team. And so that's, we're going to have to kind of evolve into that and figure that out too. So we've already had to do that a little bit.
Growing up where you grew up, I see some videos of you guys shooting some stuff, and you guys catching footballs while you're going down a wet ramp into a pond, and just looking like you're having a lot of fun. Do you think, being free like that and being able to run out in the woods and do some things that maybe other kids didn't have access to, do you think some of that was something that allowed you to end up becoming so good in CrossFit, just because maybe as a kid you were just constantly like either working and doing a chore or like playing?
For sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I that's one of the biggest things is we grew up in a place where I could literally go outside, get lost, climb trees. We rappelled off of a little bluff with a garden hose when I was a kid, which wasn't bright. And my parents were super supportive. Like I said, most of the time, as long as we found something to do outside or something productive, they were going to let us do it and weren't going to make us, do any chores. So most of the time we would go find our own stuff to do. Obviously there were still some chores that had to be done, and we did a lot of that stuff. But being able to, my dad never told me no about, stuff like that. It was more be careful. And so I try to do that with, he was there if I was going to fall, when I was super young, but man, I climbed trees, we jumped off stuff. It was just, we had and this is the kind of the story behind the rope climb where I didn't make the rope climb in 2010 was we had a rope in the barn that, was to climb. And so one time I'm trying to use my feet when I'm younger, and he's like, don't use your feet. That's for pussies. And so, thanks, Dad. I never learned how to use my feet on a rope climb before the games in 2010. And that's the story on that. But my parents were great on that type of stuff. We were always outside, and I was a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, and I think that for sure helped.
I know that you said you don't ever force your kids to do CrossFit workouts or anything like that, but obviously you grew up being super active, running around outside. Are there any things in your house where you don't have as much electronics, or do you have them do things like that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We obviously, I was one of those parents or people that was like, I'll never give my kid any type of electronics because it just, it rots their brain. But sometimes you need 10 minutes to yourself, and you're like, take this and we'll be. But it's amazing, and it actually really stresses me out to watch just how engulfed. My two younger are a little bit too young Trice, my son, pays zero attention to anything other than what he can destroy or, what the thing is that he can throw on the ground. But my oldest daughter, if you give her a phone, it's like, you can't talk to her. She's just completely engulfed, and that scares me. You're just like, all right, if I walk in the house and, she's with the babysitter and she's on the phone, I'm like, all right, let's go. We're going outside. I try to limit that as much as I can, but at times you're like, hey, I need 10 minutes to myself. I need to get something done, whatever it is. Here, you can watch. She calls it Elsa on the phone, but it's just basically YouTube Kids. But man, yeah, it is stressful. And so we have 90 acres now, and we're about to get some bison. and do a little bit of farming. And so basically nothing crazy, not a huge deal, but I want my kids to have some type of chores and some responsibility. Like they have the ability to grow up to be stuck up brats, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I like what you said about you talked about your daughter like having her phone and then you suggesting, hey, let's go outside, which is way different than, hey, I told you to put that phone away. It's a way different thing. You're not telling her what she can't do, but you're giving another option towards what you can do. I really like that a lot.
Yeah. It's really cool to see that, obviously she's a kid and electronics are big, but she's really big into Legos. And that's kind of the funny thing. And she's like, hey, you want to go upstairs and play Legos? And I'm like, heck yeah, let's go play some Legos. Like, if I'm, instead of just sitting around doing nothing, she wants to go play Legos, and she's 4.5. So it's pretty awesome.
In 2010, when you did struggle with that rope climb, was that something that kind of set forth the rest of your career? Do you think that was a moment that kind of needed to happen to get you fired up to start destroying everybody, basically?
Yeah, for sure. I before that, I'd let CrossFit kind of become in the previous months, let CrossFit kind of define who I was as a human being. And, like I said, my faith is a huge part of who I am. And that failure made me realize, hey, that, earthly things aren't what define me as a human being. And it really helped me to kind of disconnect from, for a couple months after the games that year, I didn't want to do any CrossFit. I was just like, man, I gotta get out of this. I didn't even want to work out. And so it really helped me kind of back up too. And I was like, hey, why don't you start figuring out how to move better and not necessarily worry about how much weight, but actually doing stuff correctly, because a lot of CrossFitters, maybe not now as much, but when we were back then, it was like, hey, who cares what it looks like as long as I'm getting it done fast, and now it's like, all right, let's pump the brakes a little bit and take the barbell down to 195 or 135 and let's move a bar well doing Olympic lifts before we start to load our spine and do all that type of stuff, and it really helped me overall doing that for sure.
Was that something that did help you to get away from allowing it to define you? Because I've seen it kind of burn a lot of other CrossFitters, and I see it in our sport too, in powerlifting and stuff like that, where the numbers really define you. But how does somebody get away from that?
Man, it's hard, and that was the biggest thing where I think, like I said, with my faith, it was that's what defines who I am, and anything with CrossFit can be taken away from me, but that can't really be taken away, and I for somebody who, faith isn't their thing, I think it's getting outside of yourself and not letting, it gets so, one thing be who defines you as a human being. Like now, my kids, I know that, I'm a dad first now, and there's, then there still are days where I let, what happens in the gym or what happens with numbers and all that stuff define me. Like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but every day is a new day, and I try to figure out at the end of the day, kind of take a recap and say, all right, I did this well, I did not do this well, what can I do different tomorrow? And it's tough. There are days where I'm like, man, I was a good dad today, and then there's days where I'm like, wow, I was a piece of shit. And so it's tough, and then that's life, I think, and it's as long as you're moving forward and are able to be held accountable and can hold yourself accountable and doing those things that aren't necessarily the easy things to do. That's good.
What about maybe tricking yourself a little bit with your training? Maybe utilizing like the conjugate system, doing something that's different. Let's say a particular CrossFit workout calls for some deadlifts and some pull-ups or something like that, back and forth. But rather than doing the actual protocol, maybe you deadlift and you have some chains on the bar, and maybe when you go to do your pull-ups, you're doing a pull-up on a fatter bar or something like that. Have you done things like that, thrown yourself kind of a curveball so that you're not getting too attached to the actual numbers and the actual score, maybe potentially making the workout a little bit harder, or maybe making the workout even a little bit easier?
Yeah, I rarely do benchmark workouts, honestly. I do a lot of variations of benchmark workouts. Like just an example, the other day, one of the first workouts I competed in was called Amanda, and it's just 975 muscle ups and squat snatch at 135. Well, a couple of weeks ago, it was 3-2-1 legless rope climbs with 975 squat snatch. So we'll do a lot of stuff like that where it's similar time domain, similar stimulus, but it's a completely different movement. But yeah, it's kind of the beauty of what we do is you can kind of change that stuff as much as you want. But like I said, I really don't do a ton of the benchmark straight CrossFit.com benchmark workouts. We use those as kind of a template. And then another thing that we've actually started doing is it's tough, because intensity is a huge key in what we do, and CrossFit, preaches intensity and all that stuff. One thing that I've started doing is adding some actual like interval metcons into. So like we'll do that 975 with 3-2-1 legless, but we did it 3 times. And so you rested till 10, almost complete rest, and go again. And so, because that's one of the things with CrossFit, a lot of people are like, you only did a 2-minute workout today. And so, how are you going to get better at a mile? You're not going to just run a mile. You're going to do it, in different variations and a couple different times. So that's kind of something that I've learned over it's kind of crazy to think back. I've been doing CrossFit going on 10 years. So
that's something that's helped me a lot too, just with my training, is like I don't do the exact thing that I'm called to do in competition. And when I do, it's still usually like a small variation. And that just helps me from a mental perspective. I don't want to be, I do need to know where I'm at sometimes, but I also don't want to be discouraged if I'm not exactly where I want to be. And I think for someone like yourself, you probably already kind of know, like, whether you're 5% off or 2% off or whether you're right on point.
Right. Yeah, but it's still tough. There's days where you don't realize how much stuff affects, like the other day, yesterday, man, I was feeling great. I did a bike erg workout and actually like PR'd my 20-minute watt test by like 10 watts, which is pretty big actually. And so it's, when those days are good, I try to strike while the iron's hot. And then there's going to be days where you're like, man, I feel like garbage, and you just try to just get through it, and that's one of the big things is, people talk about plateaus and overtraining and all that stuff. And as long as I try to keep it fun, like there are times where I felt like I was not necessarily physically overtrained, but mentally, I think it's more of a mental thing than anything. Obviously there is science behind physical overtraining, like if you're, being ridiculous, but, I think it's more mental for me personally. As long as I'm having fun and enjoying what I'm doing, it's hard for me to be overtrained.
CrossFit's really interesting at this point because nowadays, like with a lot of other established sports, you're seeing young kids starting, right? And they look like they're phenoms and they're doing some crazy stuff, and they're just starting really early. So for a 16 or 17-year-old kid that might be listening and let's say they have a little bit of experience with the barbell, what would you tell them to do to get started if they're like, I want to be a competitive CrossFitter when I'm in my 20s? Would you say start and find yourself a CrossFit box? Would you tell them to start with Olympic lifting? What should they do?
Play as many sports as they can physically possibly play. This is my one soapbox that I get. So there's a couple soapboxes, but this is one of my main ones. I can't stand when kids come up to me and like, hey, I quit playing football or I quit playing baseball to concentrate on being a professional CrossFitter. That drives me insane. If I could go back today at my age, I would have used CrossFit or used some type, like I would have gotten in the weight. I would have squatted more. I never squatted growing up because I didn't really know how to do it, and our coach didn't teach us a ton about it. I did a bunch of bench press, bunch of pull-ups. baseball players do forearm stuff. We did a ton of that. I would go back and squat, power clean, power snatch, all that stuff. However, I would play sports. I would have played more sports. I played baseball. That was my concentration. I thought, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. If I could go back, I would have played more football. I would have tried other things. I think you need, if you can play more sports, you're going to have a larger base. You've got the rest of your life to do CrossFit or be a professional fitness, whatever it is, but you can't go back to high school or college and play sports. Like, yeah, you can play softball, men's league softball, beer league softball, whatever, but you can't go back and you can't replace the memories that I have from the locker room, the competition that I had growing up playing baseball. You know, some of my best friends that I still talk to are from there, and you can't replace that. And so for me, it kills me when I hear kids saying, "Oh, I quit just to concentrate on CrossFit." Use CrossFit for your sport. Obviously, I think, find a good affiliate. Make sure you're doing the movements correctly. Don't necessarily worry so much about weight, more about how well you move and moving the bar well, or doing pull-ups correctly and all that type of stuff. But man, play as many sports as you can.
How advanced has your training got? You seem like you're pretty bare bones, like I'm just going to like run, or I'm going to sprint, or I'm going to do a CrossFit workout. But have you done like CO2 maxes? Have you had, anyone come in and done scientific research? Do you have like a running coach and a lifting coach and a coach for each different thing, or how do you do it?
Yeah, so I've done my VO2 a couple times. I did a kind of a case study with one of my ex-professors where post games I did a VO2. Leading up to the Open, I did a VO2, post-regionals VO2, games VO2, and just kind of cataloged my training throughout the year. Nothing like super crazy. We did, some hand dynamometer, whatever it is, testing, did a vertical leap, that type of stuff. And then there was a couple, like 1 rep max stuff. So I did that, what was that, 3 or 4 years ago? But as far as coaches, I've worked with Hinshaw some. He gives us some running stuff. We'll bounce some ideas off of each other. I've never really had a lifting coach. I've worked with Coach B some, when he's in town. Always great to work with him. But then I've just kind of learned most of the time I've learned what not to do. And then as far as CrossFit goes, I feel like, with the team, we'll kind of sit up, we'll write stuff on the board. Hey, what have we done? What have we not done recently? What time domains have we hit? What lifts have we not done? How's everybody feeling? And we'll kind of make workouts like that. I did have a swim coach a couple years ago, and now we kind of do that on our own. But I think it's very beneficial to have specialty coaches for certain things. As far as CrossFit coaches go, I don't really think anybody has it figured out as much as they think they do. I think training partners is huge. Or somebody that's the problem, and the problem with a lot of, I'll probably get in trouble for this, but the problem with a lot of CrossFit coaches is they haven't been there. It's hard to say, hey, well, I know exactly what's going to go on and what you need to do, but you don't, because you haven't competed, you haven't been in that moment and actually been a part of that. So training partners for me is a big thing. I like having a lot of people around and people that are going to push you.
Yeah, just mainly working your ass off, right?
Pretty much. That's the thing, is everybody thinks there's some short road or some easy way to get there, but it's hard work. It always comes back to that.
On that note, you mentioned that they haven't been there, and you own you own your own big CrossFit gym. Post competing, or I don't know when that's going to be for you, do you see yourself like working with a lot of people in that way? Like, what is it that you want to do outside of competition?
Yeah, man, I'm still trying to figure that out. Obviously, I always just kind of am, what's the next opportunity that presents itself? I think I could help maybe do some coaching. I just, it's hard for me I'm usually the lead by example type of person versus rah, get in your face, give you some BS and pat you on the ass and tell you you're good to go. Like, I'm more like, hey, let's go do this. I'm right there with you. And I think honestly that comes from my parents. Like I said, they were never going to ask me to do something that they weren't going to do. I never got some big speech from my dad about, if I missed, had played bad in baseball. He's like, well, just do better next time. It was just kind of an expectation. And so I'm not really sure, to be honest. I feel like that probably will be where I end up, and I want to be involved in the sport in some way. I just am not sure how that, on the team, that's not I'm not the comforter or the the nurturer on the team. I'm more of the, hey, why are you crying? I've got to go over here. I can't handle this. And it sounds like it's just my personality. And obviously I'll do anything and help them out any way I can, as long as we stay under control and emotionally we're all right. It's just not my forte.
I think it'd be very beneficial for a lot of people just to hear your story. That would be a great place to start. So as many people as you can share your story with, just how everything unfolded and how everything went for you, where you messed up and where you succeeded. People love hearing stories like that, and that'll be motivational without being like a speech. It'll be motivational just in and of itself. It's just your body of work.
Yeah. It's that's kind of what I'm realizing is, back when I first started doing CrossFit, or, won the games once or twice, people would ask me to come speak. And I'm like, my biggest fear, honestly, from like college was public speaking class, it's just was not where I wanted to be. And now I guess back then you feel like I didn't really do anything. Why do you want to listen to me speak? And so now it's kind of like, all right, let me tell you all the things I screwed up first, and then we'll tell you.
Yeah, your willpower can be built, whether it's for CrossFit or whether it's for like public speaking. You can kind of build up the nerve to do anything.
Yeah, it just takes some time.
You got a question, Andrew?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is it weird being you? Meaning, like, are you surprised at all that you go to a CrossFit event and fans are freaking out, and you're just like, dude, I've just been working my ass off my whole life, but yet now the name Rich Froning is something. It means something. It's as of right now, the greatest of all time when it comes to CrossFit. Does any of that like weird you out at all?
Yeah, a lot. Like when people, try to take a picture and they're shaking or something, or we had a guy cry the other day. I was just like, man, I just work out. Like I work out a lot, and it just happens to be that some people like to watch that, and it's hard for me kind of like, or I try to tell them, hey, no big deal. Like we're normal people. And, luckily, like I said, I kind of grew into that. If it would have been an overnight thing, I would have been really freaked out. And now it's kind of like, as the sport grew, I kind of grew with it. And so that helped a ton, because like I said, back years ago, I'm still a little bit of I'm not an introvert by any means, but I don't like crowds. I'm not a huge, outgoing person. And so that's something that I've kind of had to learn, as we've gone. And if I had to do that overnight, I think it would have been even more awkward. Like if you go back and watch some old videos of interviews and stuff, you can tell, you're like, wow, that guy definitely needed some type of media training or something like that. It's helped that I've kind of grown into it. It wasn't an overnight thing.
You actually touched on it a little bit. I'm curious exactly what these pitfalls were that you mentioned, because you said there were a lot of things that you wish you didn't do. What are those things that maybe you wish you didn't do that you might see other athletes doing? And the second part that I want to know is, because since everything you do is so intense, even to this day, what are your best recovery methods and things that you think others should be doing?
Yeah, as far as things that I did wrong, is I didn't take care of my body when I was younger. I didn't get body work done. I didn't do those type of things. Then there's a lot of dumb workouts where you're just like, why did I do that? As far as volume wise, rep wise, stuff like that. I did this thing for almost a year and a half, 2 years, where I would do 300 calories on an Airdyne every single day. Looking back, it probably could have been a little bit more productive, just stupid things where you're, not necessarily, I don't think it was a detriment to my fitness, but I could have been a lot more smart with my time. And even now that I've over the years have realized, hey, these things work, or maybe I don't need to do as much volume as I thought I needed to do on certain things and all that type of stuff. It's just, there's probably too many to really list, but those are the main things. Volume wise, just being smarter about how you're training, taking the necessary recovery needs and stuff like that. I still, honestly, people ask how many rest days I take. I feel better when I move every day. Some days may not be as high intensity or as as stressful, but I still move every single day. And one of the big things too is like Thursdays now, I usually just swim and bike, so it's a little bit easier on my joints. Sunday I usually just bike so I can hang out with my family a little bit more, but and then as far as those, I guess that kind of leads into the next question. As far as recovery goes, swimming is a huge one for me. I really like to swim. I use it as a hard training session, but it doesn't beat me up as bad. And so I do that usually twice a week, around 2,500 meters each time I'm in the pool. Like I said, with the bike erg, I do that twice a week. It doesn't beat me up like running does, but I can still get pretty decent workouts in. I actually last year also bought a cold tub, but not like a nice fancy cold tub. Like I went to Walmart or to Lowe's and bought a deep freezer and put an aquarium thermostat in there and keep it at about 50 degrees. And so I sit in that. I haven't been doing it as much because it's been so cold outside, but now that it's warmed up, I'll start doing that again every day, about 10 to 15 minutes. And that really helped. I have infrared sauna that I use, not as much as I'd like to because I have 3 kids. And so if I'm in there, the kids are in and out and losing all the heat. And it's ridiculous. But that was a big thing for me that I really like to do when I have the time. A regular sauna too, as well. Whenever I get done swimming, I'll usually sit in a regular sauna. Recovery wise, I've used, I really like the Hypervolt gun, or the Theragun. Man, that thing
great,
is magic. And like I said, the biggest thing is now I've been going to this doctor, this DO, once a week and he'll just put me back in the line. He'll do some of this, joint therapy stuff and then some acupuncture, honestly. And as weird as that sounds, years ago, I was like acupuncture, but it has helped move some inflammation and make me feel better. We have a lady that comes every 2 weeks and does dry needling. That's another one that we do. That's pretty much it as far as recovery. Like I said, it's the hardest part, and that's the one thing that still gets a little bit neglected is recovery. Just with having 3 kids, like if I'm trying to recover for an hour, my wife sees me sitting around for an hour. How's that going to go? Usually not very. So that's usually the biggest thing. Like I said, is making a point to not letting myself get to the point where I'm falling apart. So I'll go see somebody. It's, hey, once a week, take the hour and a half, go see somebody, stay in line, make sure you're recovering versus let the wheels fall off, try to put everything back together. That's been the big thing.
Does your training at least adhere to something along the lines of you are maybe concerned about recovery? So just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. So in a given workout, you can go full blast and you can really blast yourself out. You have a tremendous work capacity. So that's got to be a little bit in the back of the mind. You want to be intense and you want to go hard, but you probably just pull back a little bit on something or say, that's not smart to do that today.
Yeah. Usually it's just go as fast as the 1 rep faster than the person who I'm training with. It's usually because you only have so many days where you can actually full on, put the pedal to the metal because it takes so much out of you. But obviously we're training hard, but probably, we say go as hard as you can, but it's probably around 85, 90% if you had to really look at it. And then, like I said, it's being smart. We're like, hey, my knee is a little bit swollen today. My hip's not feeling great on that side. Let's not go for a 5 rep max, front squat or something like that. And just trying to be smart about that type of stuff is like, hey, the benefit I might get or the strength I might get actually might not help because I can't walk tomorrow. So that's as hard as it is to be smart. Sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah. Is it tough when you're in your gym and you have your guys around you and, maybe someone's trying to compete with you or you have a guest and they walk in and you're like, oh, I'm going to take it easy today. And they're like, well, wait, but you're the CrossFit champ. I'm going to see what you got. Is it hard to kind of step back from that?
It used to be. Now I'm like, I'm all right. I don't have to prove to you anything.
Nice.
For the first couple of years, it was like, oh yeah, I just did that, but you know what? I'll do it again because you're doing it. And then somebody new would come in because back then I'd have a group that would come train in the morning. I'd have a group that came and trained in midday and a group that would come train in the afternoon. And so I'm like, oh yeah, well I'm going to do what I did already again because I'm going to prove to you I'm fitter than you. And then the afternoon, same thing. And now luckily we all kind of all trains together. And so it's not that big a deal. So we all kind of hold each other accountable. But yeah, it was for years. It was just like, oh yeah, I heavy power clean this morning. Let's do it again just because. So I was like, yeah, maybe Dave might make us do that at the game. So I might have to be ready for that. And then I was like, this is dumb. I'm an idiot. Those are some of the things, like you said, things that I learned is, hey, you don't have to. There's still some days that I feel like I want to like show how fit I am to new people or to the group that I'm with. But there's most days I'm like, I'm good. I'm all right. I'm gonna be smart here.
What do you think of the current state of CrossFit?
Oh man, it's confused, honestly. You can't. I don't really know how to feel about some of the stuff. Like obviously, Greg has big picture ideas that he's wanting to do, and it's his baby. And if he wants to burn it to the ground, he can do that. It's his to do. And as an athlete, it's, hey, we just got to roll with the punches and have to adapt it at what the new standard is going to be or what the new norm is going to be. And there's not much we can do, and just do what we can or control what we can control. And that's train hard and work hard and try to put the best team out there or best individual, whoever you are, out there. I think, like I said, it's Greg's baby to burn or do whatever he wants with, and we can't really do anything about it. And I'm interested to see what's going to happen at the games this year. There's a couple things that I think could be run a little bit different. Like I think the Open is a little bit hard to let people qualify to the games out of the Open. As much as we want to say CrossFitters are all holier than thou and nobody's going to cheat, I feel like might be some cheaters out there, and it is what it is.
Do you think maybe CrossFit should have like a board of maybe some former champions like yourself, and maybe get a couple people together to maybe make some decisions on CrossFit games or things of that matter? Maybe
I think it might be beneficial, but like I said, it's Greg's to do with what he. I mean, if he asked me to help out or asked a bunch of us ex-athletes or ex-champions to sit down and kind of go through some stuff, I'd be happy to help. But I don't think he has to do that. I think it might be beneficial, but if that's not what he wants to do and he wants to run it how he wants to run it, go for it, man.
You mentioned cheating. Have you seen or how do you feel about the testing? Have you been tested for PEDs yourself? And what have you kind of seen in the CrossFit game? Because a lot of people will say, look how jacked these guys are. Look how ripped these guys are. Look at their performances of the men and the women. And they think that people are on anabolic steroids or PEDs. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm 192 pounds and 5'9". Steroids. I would like to find some better steroids. I'm all for testing and all for doing as much testing as possible. I've been tested a couple times out of season, urine and blood. Everybody talks about how easy it is to cheat. I guess I'm just too stupid to even look up how to cheat, or don't even. I feel like they'd somehow find that on my phone. I've never done any of that stuff. Somehow last year when we showed up to register, my team got randomly selected, and I got randomly selected to drug test at registration, and then post games they test all of the individuals and teams at podium, and somehow I got randomly selected to give blood after the games too. So I'm all for. You probably couldn't give blood every single day, but if I could go back and give all the blood I had and as many urine samples as I could just to shut people up, I would do it. I think people are going to cheat, and it's naive to say, well, CrossFitters, they would never cheat. And as soon as you start throwing money in there or fame or any of that type of stuff, people are going to cheat. And so, there might be some cheaters out there. They did catch some people last year at regionals and all that type of stuff. So I feel like they kind of stepped up their game, but I don't know. We'll see.
Has CrossFit ever broken you? You mentioned losing the 2010 games, and I'm sure you've had. I know me personally, I've had workouts where I've driven home from the gym and I've been super frustrated, mad, sad. I've even cried after workouts and stuff like that before. Has CrossFit ever broken you down?
Oh yeah, for sure. After 2010, like I said, there was. I was in a dark place, didn't like where I was at, didn't enjoy doing any of that stuff. And then really this knee stuff was hard. It was, I couldn't do the things I wanted to do, couldn't train the way I wanted to train. It's really kind of an emotional thing when you can't squat. As bad as it sounds, you're like, squats are terrible, but it takes out so much more than you'd think. And man, there would be days where I would just like be mad. I'd be mad at my kids, and I'm like, what am I doing? And so that injuries has been really hard. And that was it's not fun. And like I said, it's there's been days where have a bad workout or things happen, and you're just like, why am I letting this really mess with me this bad? Like, tomorrow's a new day, and that's something that I've had to kind of learn is like, hey, there's going to be days that you're not going to feel as fit or as strong or as healthy as you think you are, and then there's going to be days where you feel great. And so it's like I talked about earlier, kind of with every day is a new day.
Everybody that does a big sport wants to be the best at it. No matter when they start, they want to try and be the best. If you can go back to 11 to 14, I know you said that there's something you need to have internally to be able to do something like that, to be able to achieve that. Mentally, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? Like, yeah, you're training hard, but what's going on in your head?
Oh man, like I said, it was waking up every single morning. My goal was to win the CrossFit Games, and I would sacrifice any and everything. Like, that's what I wanted to do. And I don't know, honestly, we were talking earlier where that really came from. I think it was a mix of everything. I'm one of 32 first cousins on my mom's side. 25 of us are boys. And so any get-together, any family get-together was always some type of competition. And I hated losing. I hated the embarrassment. Like, even if it was just me and somebody else, I felt embarrassed losing. And I still feel that, it's like, the saying, I don't like to win as much as I hate losing. That is 1000% true. Like, I feel embarrassed losing in anything. It's so stupid, but it's just the way I'm wired, I guess.
You mentioned earlier about goals, and you kind of said that you don't really set a lot of goals. Are you the kind of person that writes things down sometimes, like in terms of maybe something that you want to do business wise, or if a certain idea comes to your mind for something that you may want to do with one of your sponsors like Rogue Fitness, or something you want to do with the gym? Do you journal things? Do you write things down? How do you stay on track with that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'm not a huge don't write down a ton of things. If I do have some type of idea, I will either notepad it, or I usually just go immediately to the source of whoever I think can get that done. If it's something for the gym, I have a couple different directors who are in charge of different things. I'll be like, hey, what do you think of this? And we kind of bounce some ideas back and forth. I'm not a huge I like other people's input. So I like to say, hey, what do you think of this? Versus, oh, I know that's a good idea. I want to hear somebody else. And, they may have a better, just maybe needed to push, and they can run with the idea. I'm not a huge, like I said, I'm a huge journal. I don't keep a journal. I don't do anything like that, but I do have a notepad on my phone, I'll write down all my workouts and all that type of stuff. But as far as writing stuff down, not a huge person in that.
What's something that you enjoy doing that maybe most people wouldn't think of? Are you at home watching some crappy reality TV, or you have anything like that in your back pocket?
Huge TV fan. I mean, I like movies. I'm ready for the new Endgame to come out. We are going to China, and it is coming out earlier there.
Oh,
so
cool.
I will. It is in English. I found that out too. I love all those movies. I was never a huge comic book person though, but I love the movies. What else? I like The Office. I just now started watching The Office, as surprising as that is. It's definitely, I can't believe it took me so long to watch it. But man, I don't really have a ton of time for TV. If I do watch TV, it's mostly Disney Junior. So talk about there. I'm a huge sports fan. Love watching Notre Dame football, as bad as it was to watch the Cotton Bowl. And then I like to be outside. I like to hunt, play any type of sport I can, as long as, I can still move around and do stuff. Picked up hockey the last 5 or 6 years ago. Like to go, we have lakes around here, so do some like wake surfing. I used to wakeboard a lot until I don't have that switch that's like, hey, you shouldn't do that. And now I'm too old for that. So yeah, I just like being outside, like doing stuff like that.
Into any books?
Yeah, so I do have a goal to read biography about every U.S. president. I read all of Bill O'Reilly's Killing books. I read all of those, and then I read Reagan's biography. I'm almost finished with George Washington, so I kind of backtracked, and then I'm going back to the beginning. Read George Washington's biography. I met President George W. Bush, and then he gave me a signed copy of his book, so that's pretty cool.
You would enjoy, it's on the History Channel. It's called The Men Who Built America. And it's the Frontier. It's got like, Daniel Boone and all those people on it. Pretty cool. That kind of reminds me of you. I can picture you in one of those funny little hats, with the raccoon on it or whatever. Yeah. hunting down some deer.
I had one of my lieutenants at the fire department. We couldn't watch anything but the History Channel. So for years, I actually really enjoy history. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, that sounds like something I'd really like.
What's your favorite thing to do with your family?
Oh man, my kids right now love riding around in our Razor, like a side-by-side.
Cool.
Just having them outside, and like Lakeland has this little, it's called a stay cycle, so a stability bike that is a motorcycle. It's got an electric engine, little motor on it. It's pretty awesome to have her just ripping around on that thing, and just being out there and doing things with them and having some fun. And like I said, my son right now is just he's a tornado. We call him Trice-Manian Devil or Trice-Aster or Trice-Nado. He literally just destroys everything. So they're fun. And then my youngest, she's just the sweetest thing, and she's only a year old though, but she's starting to get some, starting to try to walk and do that stuff. So it's fun.
And am I tripping, or did I just see you recently break a 16.2 record, or was that a while ago?
Yeah, no, that was 16.2. It was actually after I saw Mark up in Columbus. All the other guys were doing it, and I was traveling a lot, so I couldn't do it that morning. And so Monday, I was like, let's do this. And I honestly, going into it, and as lame as this sounds, I was like, just don't hurt yourself. I hadn't cleaned anything over 275 in months, and so hitting 315 for 7 reps was going to be a little shaky, and we came out the other side all right, so it was good.
Yeah, watching you guys work out that day was insane. There was like 12 or 13 championships between everybody that was at Rogue that day.
There's a lot of people in there that are pretty fit.
I was like, man, I'm way too fat for this room. I need to get out of here.
All right.
Hey, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Where can people find you? And if you have anything coming up that you'd like to promote, go ahead and fire it out.
Oh, yeah. No, I appreciate you guys having me. Sorry I couldn't make it out there to you, so we're going to do it Skype-wise. But, Rich Froning on Instagram, just at Rich Froning, Instagram, Twitter. I don't really do a ton of tweeting. We have a YouTube channel, just CrossFit Mayhem. And then CrossFitMayhem.com, pretty much all that. And then we do have Froning Farms coming out, so we'll see what that turns into. Really not sure what that's going to be, but we'll have some bison. Oh,
awesome. Yeah, and then you've created some products with Rogue Fitness, and you have some different barbells, and then even with Reebok, you guys created a shoe together, I think, right?
Yeah. So Rogue, I've got a barbell, a squat stand for a home gym type squat stand, jump rope, and then with Reebok we have apparel. We got shoes, shorts, shirt. Really enjoy that. It was pretty cool to work with them on that type of stuff. So
yeah, what's it been like being part of that process where they, this huge company shows you like these different color shoes and these different styles, and then they show you different equipment from Rogue, and they say, hey, pick out what you'd like or tweak it. What's that experience been like?
Bill with Rogue is awesome. Bill and Katie are the best. They're super supportive, and they get it. They're like, hey, we're going to make this black barbell, put an R-Star on it. What else you want to do? And so, we kind of changed the knurling up and did a couple different things. That's awesome. And then, hey, if you were going to have a squat stand in your basement, what would you do? So I had that. And then with Reebok, building the shoe, Tal Short with Reebok is awesome. And he, at first you're kind of like, I really don't know. And then he's like, all right, do this. What things do you like about a shoe? What do you not like about a shoe? And man, he did a great job with that. So it was a cool process. It was a long process. Took us 2 years basically to get it done, but was really happy with the way it came out on the other side.
Yeah, to see how much Rogue has grown from the beginning is insane. Because you said you probably started with them around 2010 or so, right?
Yeah. Well, 2011, but yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Man, they're just awesome people, and they just work hard. And literally, that's a true testament to just work, and they've done it.
Thanks again, man. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Awesome, guys. If you want to visit Cookville, come on out.
I definitely do. For sure.
Open invitation.
Have a great day.
See you guys. Thanks.
Ooh.
We got to start working out, I think.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, you've been really slacking off, Nsima.
I know, man. It's pretty rough. I'm out of shape. I'm getting out of shape.
It's showing.
I love that he's just so physical, like he's not, he's just like a doer. Like he doesn't have time to really stop and even think. I don't think he's just like constantly doing shit.
It's ingrained in him. You can tell, like, even always running around as a kid, always doing stuff. He's just used to that. He doesn't get up in the morning and meditate and journal. He just does things.
Yeah. He's just a savage.
Or it just seems like, he doesn't need to write stuff down because he's like probably just a genius, right? He just like, no, why would I write that down? I know exactly what my day's going to look like, or, what have you.
I think he's just living in the moment too. He's just going, cool. going. And then something probably pops up in his head or whatever, like he said, and he just contacts whoever to help him out with it.
Yeah. It's almost like scary, right? Like his attitude towards like, I'm going to win, like, cause I hate losing. It worked out fantastic for him, but like, that could almost become toxic in someone else who might not have the work capacity that he has. But I mean, shit, he obviously he got a good grasp on it.
Yeah. I think you can only be that way if you're coming out on top more often, because otherwise you really are. I've seen a lot of CrossFitters really crash and burn and just be super upset with themselves and be really frustrated with where they're at. And then they try some of these workouts and they do the same weights as everybody else and they're injured. And it's like, well, this isn't gonna help your injury. This is gonna make it way worse, Yeah.
I wonder how many big losses he has to deal with, because his first games, he got second. Literally the first time he competes in CrossFit, he gets second.
Yeah.
Right? And then he gets first piece. Like that's crazy. You don't like, I wonder like if there were any like big losses he had as a teenager, or if he's always just been kind of close to the top and being close to winning at things. Cause I mean, to come out and get second in your first games, that's not normal.
Yeah, I think most CrossFitters that are at a high level, they were at least pretty good at something previously. And he was a good baseball player, good enough to play in college. And with Matt Frazier was a good Olympic lifter. Not great, not the best, but very, very good. And that makes a huge difference. And then they get into the sport that maybe plays into their height, their body weight, and it just ends up being kind of a perfect recipe. And as he mentioned, he just was out playing all the time as a kid. So it's like, where's that work capacity come from to compete in something like the CrossFit Games is like a 5-day event. And I think I think 4 out of the 5 days are brutal. And there's like 1 day where there's like a little less stuff, I guess, or something like that. It's at least 4 days in a row or something. And how do you have a work capacity for that? Well, maybe the way you have work capacity for that is to be a wild man when you're a kid. I think Matt Frazier's life was similar. I think he grew up doing a lot of stuff outside. Something like hunting is like long duration. Like, is hunting really that exhausting? I mean, it depends on what you're hunting and how you're doing it. But it's like long, and it's like a long, slow process. And I would imagine that if you traveled somewhere to hunt, you might hunt for a few days in a row, and you kind of think about like, okay, well, that kind of matches up with what you're doing in CrossFit. And then when you kill something, what do you got to do? You got to drag it. It's heavy. There's a lot of a lot of good physical activity that I think was embedded into Rich Froning's life at a young age, which helped build him.
Yeah. And being uncomfortable for long periods of time is the big thing, because when you get to that exhaustion point during one of those workouts, and it's not like it's towards the end, it's like halfway through, you're feeling dead and you have another half of a workout to finish off. That takes a lot of grit.
Yeah, you must have to pretty much always stay in shape. Otherwise, that restart would be so hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you went out and you were supposed to do a 5-mile run and you went out and you're 2 miles in and you're like half dead.
Yeah.
That would be a shitty feeling. Or you're midway through a workout that takes 20 minutes. Watching these guys work out, and girls, it blew my mind. Watching Matt Frazier do that workout that he was talking about, was it 16.2 you said, right? Or 19.2? Watching him do that workout was wild. He did clean after clean with like 315, I think it was.
And him and Frazier were in the gym at the same time.
Yeah.
Or him and Froning were in the gym at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, they were in the gym at the same time. They were doing different workouts. But like Camille LeBlanc was in there. She's won the CrossFit Games. Sarah Sigmund's daughter was in there. She's won there's just a bunch of CrossFit Games champions. It was crazy to watch him work out, but to watch him continually manage this, 315 on the bar for, clean after clean. He would do like 3 reps in a row, and then he'd take a little break, and he'd do 2 reps in a row, and then he'd take a break, but he was just destroying it. I was like, this is insane. And Rich Froning's doing like a workout that he's considered to be like easy, and he's doing single leg squats, GHR, and maybe some double unders. He was going back and forth between all 3 of these things, and he's talking to me as he's like doing them, and he's just cranking right through it. But I think that's a great thing about CrossFit, and it's something that I've tried to share with people many times. It's like, your workout doesn't need to take an hour. Your workout doesn't. There's not like a prescribed time associated with having a good workout. You can go in the gym for 15 minutes. We could go in the gym right now and do some shoulders and have a good shoulder workout, and it could take 12, 15 minutes if we really wanted it to, right? We could still be very, very productive. Use drop sets or supersets or something like that. And
dog crap training.
Yeah, the dog crap training. It's like you do basically 5 sets in a row, broken up with 10-second increments in between, and you drop the weight a little bit. But CrossFit's kind of the same thing. It's like, if you're going to do 3 things at one time, which is like a triplet, they call it.
Yeah.
Or you're going to go back and forth between 2 exercises. I mean, what if you're doing burpees and pull-ups? It's like, first of all, how long are you going to be able to do that for? And then secondly, how much more training do you need for the day? You can be done with it quickly, and you can get in and out of it. So
yeah, that's exactly why I wanted to start CrossFit though back in the day. It's because I saw all these super jacked people lifting. I loved lifting, but I also like wanted to be super jacked at the same time. It was inspiring to see that. But like, I think that's kind of like what I don't do CrossFit now, but I do something that's high with cardiovascular work, and then I still get to lift. I have the best of both worlds. This is kind of what I was aiming for in terms of the athlete I wanted to be. So it's not CrossFit, but it's CrossFit.
That's cool that you found it though, because I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't find it because they're told like, no, this is the way you have to do this. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure you want to deadlift 800 pounds, like, or 775, or get a PR on it or something. But you're also like, well, no, my priority right now is jiu-jitsu. And so I'm not really leaning towards that, bigger deadlift or that PR just yet. But you're maintaining your strength. You're keeping it up, maybe even getting a little bit stronger. And it's able to show up on the mat where that's the priority, But I think a lot of people, they don't really ever find it because, you can't do bodybuilding and powerlifting at the same time. And, you shouldn't really be doing all that cardio because that's going to break down your muscles. And that's the stuff I try to share with people every day. Sometimes people get pissed about it when I talk about it. But look, if you like walking and you like running, or you like lifting, or whatever the things are that you like, you can figure out ways to get them all done and still be very productive. And it's not about PEDs all the time. You can still figure it all out. You can figure out a way to implement fasting. You could figure out a way to implement running into your workouts. I'm running about 2 or 3 days a week. That's not excessive. That's not a lot. Like, if that does pull away from my lifting, then it should only pull away from my lifting for a real short period of time. It shouldn't, and I'm not killing myself. I'm not running miles and miles and miles, but just something I wanted to do. I wanted to increase my cardiovascular training, and I didn't really necessarily do it for body comp, but it certainly helps. And, I just think it's cool to find your thing, find what feels good. It makes you feel awesome.
Got to experiment more. And I do think it's super cool that he picked up fasting. I wasn't expecting that, especially with the kind of workouts he does. Like, he's still performing at a high level, and that his high level is extremely high, even though he's not like, a 14 shape. He's still in disgustingly good shape.
He's a meathead through and through, and that's what I've always admired about him. He really is a meathead. Jason Khalipa tries to cover up the fact that he's a meathead, but Jason Khalipa is a knucklehead, and he's a meathead 100%. Both those guys, they love to train. They love it. They love the barbell. And I'm not saying it and trying to say derogatory things about them. They're both very, very smart people, and there's a ton of things to learn from both of them. But you even saw with Rich, he's not like this super deep guy. He just goes and does it, which I admire that. I think that's cool. Like, he doesn't need like a motivational speech. He doesn't need a bunch of hype. He doesn't need a bunch of caffeine and stuff to get himself fired up for a workout. It's just in there. Mm-hmm. He just goes and he just does it, and he kicks everybody's ass.
Yeah. His gym setting's interesting too. He has gospel songs playing throughout every workout. It's pretty dope. Yeah.
Hey, whatever works for you. And then he's got a bunch of world champions there too. That was amazing. He got everybody to move to Tennessee, some of these high-level coaches and athletes and stuff. Super cool. Anyway, we're going to get out of here. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.